I want to take just a couple of quick seconds and talk about Photoshop's revert command. And before we do that, we should maybe clean our screen up a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this extra file that you and I had just created in the previous exercise, so you can just flip back over to that file if you want and just click on the X on the document tab there just to close out of them. I'm not going to bother saving this guy. I suppose you can if you want, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. We have this command inside Photoshop called revert. Now, you might know about the revert command from some of your other applications that you might work with on a regular basis. Essentially, what the revert command will do is take us back to the last time that we saved our file. It would be the same as me closing out of the barn photograph here, not saving when Photoshop prompts me to save, and then simply reopening the document. Do you follow what I mean here? So I could go through all that if I wanted to. Or what I could do instead is I could just head up to Photoshop's File menu, and then I guess just about halfway down, just past halfway I should say, you'll find the revert command. Now, you can go ahead and choose that, or you can just hit F12 on your keyboard. Now, Mac users, you may need to reassign your system preferences keystrokes here, but normally myself, I remap all that stuff anyway. So I would just hit F12, but yourself here, you can choose File and then Revert. And essentially what that does is that takes us all the way back to the last time that we saved our file. Now, what's cool about using the Revert command, instead of closing out of the file, not saving, and then reopening the file, is that the Revert command shows up inside the History palette. So if I take a look over inside the History palette, there's my Revert command. So in other words, I could go, oh shoot, I didn't mean to revert back. I wanted to continue where I'd left off. I can just back up one step and then continue on my merry way, right? So there you go. The revert command there, I really wanted to show you that, and I really wanted to show you history as well. And, I will say this, there's even more to the history palette. I'm trying to keep it, relatively short and sweet for you, but there's a couple of other very cool things that you can do with your history. And of course, don't forget that you can control the number of history states or the number of stored history steps that the history palette will store for you inside your preferences. Do you remember where that is? If you're on the Windows side, head to the Edit menu. Here on the Mac side, I'll head up to the Photoshop menu and then down to Preferences and then into Performance. And there we will have History States. And the default number of history steps or history states is 20. So in other words, once I get all the way down to 20, the history panel is going to run out of room. And what happens after I perform 21st step, if that makes sense, then it starts taking things off of the top of the history palette, if that makes sense. So I couldn't go back to open, I couldn't go back to dry brush, things like that. But anyway, there you go. There's your history panel.